Welcome to the Brickworks podcast, an extension of the studio based here in Burnham-on-sea. Our aim for this podcast is to have a completely open forum for conversation. This could be about art, life, mental health, or even how the world is burning down around us right now. Whether you're listening to this whilst on a run or relaxing at home, we hope you enjoy our mild-mannered rambles. Thank you. So what's going on, Vinny? How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay, as best as can be, I suppose. With
2020.
Oh, fuck 2020, man. Honestly, this year.
Not great.
No. Like, if there was a year, like, the thing that scares me actually is that 2021 is going to be worse. I'm not sure how, but I feel like it could be.
I feel like we can't sit on that. Don't think about it.
Yeah, but okay, I'm thinking about it now.
Stop.
That's the best piece of advice ever. Stop.
Stop.
Just stop. It's so frustrating though, because like, I was having this conversation yesterday actually with a friend. I always say with a friend. I feel like I'm Donald Trump sometimes. Like, my friend. And she was saying how it's like, the thing that's so frustrating is like, the plans are just always changing. Yeah. It's just this constant like fucking swings and roundabouts of just like everything changing every other day.
Yeah, it is. It's just, no one can make their mind up. No one knows where they stand.
No.
I don't know where I stand. That's why I'm just not thinking about it.
Just taking the easy life.
Trying to.
Yeah. But you've been training a lot. That must be annoying with like gyms always closing.
Very. It didn't make hip recovery easy. Considering that I had hip surgery at the beginning of March, and then at the end of March, everything closed.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a physio.
That's so annoying.
So yeah, it wasn't easy, but it was nice at the same time that I wasn't missing out on anything.
Yeah, it was like the world was stopping anyways.
Yeah.
It's quite strange because we've had this conversation before, but like, obviously, we both had surgery at similar times this year. Mine, by no means, anywhere near as intense as yours, to say the least. But yeah, it was like, the first lockdown was kind of like, it was all right. Because for me anyways, it was like I was recovering from surgery anyway, so it wasn't like this feeling of being like, oh, I'm missing normality, because I would have missed it anyways because I was recovering from surgery. So it kind of made it okay in my mind to be in a lockdown as such. But then when the second one came around, and now all of this like really fucked up rigmarole of tier systems, it's just got to the point where it's frustrating now.
Yeah, it is. I think the second lockdown I coped with easier because it wasn't very long. That made it easier for me. But that's how I coped with the first one at the same time. Because he said, we'll review it in 3 weeks. So I just focused on those 3 weeks. And then it was another 3 weeks. And I just focused on those 3 weeks. I didn't want to think of it as being 3 months or however long it was.
It still blows my mind it was that long. Like, I forget how long that first like initial shutdown was, you know?
Yeah, well, I saw something the other day, or maybe it was today, not relevant, but it said March is 3 months away, and I'm like, but we were just in March. Yeah. Like, March is when all of this happened, and now it's just that year's rolled around quick.
It's really strange to think that the year has gone so like quickly, but like it hasn't felt fast. It's been one of those. I think.
It has.
Like I was saying to Mike the other day, it was like, I forget how much for me personally I've done this year, like, because this year has felt so long. It's felt like a year and a half, 2 years. It's really strange, and it must be kind of similar for yourself now, being like in a position where you're much better off physically than what you were. It must kind of feel like, okay, right, I just want to get going. I want to get moving.
Yeah. And the stop and start aspect is frustrating, to say the least. because like you said, going to the gym, pushing myself, and then gyms close for 4 weeks, and it's like, wow. And now they've opened just in the lead up to Christmas, where I don't really want to do anything now.
yeah. You're in that sort of like chill out phase.
Yeah, so it's just, it is frustrating. But there's not much that can be done.
No.
I am not Boris. No. Thankfully.
I was about to say, this this podcast would be quite different if it was that.
God. I would not want to interview him.
I would not want to be near him. That's maybe a step too far. Anyways, lost all potential of doing a podcast with Boris Johnson there.
I don't want to be near him, so
that's a win,
I will
then.
say that openly.
So, like, you had a hip replacement. Like, that's pretty fucking hardcore.
It was all right. It was major. It was a long time coming. But it's done. And I don't even know how long it's been now. What? 9 months?
Yeah, decent chunk of time.
Yeah. So I'm like halfway through recovery, which is mad that it's only halfway. But I feel good. I feel a lot better than I did 9 months ago.
Yeah.
When I just had it done.
Because it was, what was it, hip dysmorphia? No. Dysplasia. Because that's like, you've explained it to me so many times and I'm still like, huh?
Yeah, it's basically just like the ball socket in your hip doesn't form properly. And I was actually reading more about it the other day, and a lot of people suffer with bilateral hip dysplasia, which means they need both hips replaced.
Jesus.
And I know someone that has had both hips replaced, and I'm like, how? I could not go through that again.
No.
And then if you have just the one hip, it's more likely to be the left hip, which is odd because mine's the right. So,
why is it more likely to be the left?
I don't know. And it's the percentage, 97%, something major like that. It's not an exact statistic, but it's a really high percentage of hip dysplasia cases are girls and not boys. It's way more likely to happen in girls.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's like a DNA thing?
I don't know. Because it's supposed to be... There's some sort of hereditary factors in it, but I don't know where mine came from. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mainly girls that have it more than boys.
Well, I suppose like women's hips, and obviously I wouldn't know from a personal perspective. I suppose women's hips, I'm guessing they're different to men's hips in some ways, because obviously, pregnancy and birth, there's a human coming out between them. Like they might be built. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's always higher in girls, and why it's more likely to be the left than the right. It's all very. I don't know where they get the statistics from, but it is odd.
Is it quite common, like hip dysplasia?
I'm sure I read something about that the other day as well. I think it is quite common in babies, but it can be corrected in babies when they're young. And if it's quite a severe case, they might have to have surgery, be in a cast.
Yeah.
But then after that, it should be fine. It's quite rare to need a hip replacement from it.
Okay.
I think it's something like 7% of all hip replacements are from hip dysplasia.
So that's like a decent-ish chunk.
Yeah.
7% is like a good amount.
But with the amount that I imagine like arthritis cause people to get hip replacements, it's not. True. There's not that. Obviously, it's still a large amount, but with the amount of people that have hip dysplasia and the amount of people that get a hip replacement, it's probably not that many in the grand scheme of it all.
Because obviously you're only 22 now, so you're still fucking young for a hip replacement. But like, we've had a couple of conversations about it, but like you had a first surgery, am I right in saying that? Like you had a surgery, not a hip replacement, but you had surgery on your hip before.
Yeah, I've had surgeries in the past. Like when I was a youngster.
Still are, technically.
Yeah, but like when I was a kid, like my last surgery was over my 8th birthday, which I remember. So I remember my surgeon coming around and being like, "Is it someone's birthday?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Tough luck," because I was in hospital. But yeah, that was like the last one. I had I can't remember what it was called, but it was something to do with surgery on the hip to make, it's sort of like building a socket to make the hip last longer. And I was told then that it would last until I was in my 30s, which it clearly didn't do.
No.
But I wore it out with doing a lot because I'm quite an active person. Especially being at uni, I wore it out a lot quicker or a lot faster because I was walking everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot, and that just naturally wore it out, and it got stiff as well at the same time. So
yeah, I suppose like once the joint starts going, like all of the muscles and the tendons and everything start to react with it. And
well, it's never been at its highest flexibility. Like it's never been 100%.
No.
So all the muscles were very tight anyway. But now that I've had the surgery and obviously like, the new joints in, there's no reason that I won't be able to do all the things that I wasn't able to do at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's just stretching out the muscles and building up the muscle around it, because those muscles have never been used.
Yeah.
Like aside from the bare minimum, they've never been worked.
No.
So recovering and doing all the physio and exercises was like, this is odd. Like I'm getting pain in places I didn't even know you could get pain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really strange because I find it really interesting when I speak with like people that have got like physical ailments, you know what I mean? Because I'm lucky enough that all of the problems that I've had with my body have been somewhat my fault in some ways. My ankles and shoulders and stuff like that, they've all been from like accidents or bikes or whatever. So it's really interesting to hear like when people have been through like those physical ailments and they're like now recovered, like yourself, and hearing about like the different aches and pains and stuff. It's like, because for me, I've never been in that situation, so it's really interesting in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I know people that are still waiting to have surgeries done, and with all of COVID, I looked into it and I saw that the waiting list now for a hip replacement on the NHS is astronomical. And people can't, there was people that have left their jobs because they can't cope with the pain, and they have to wait 18 months
Jesus
to get seen.
Yeah, that's
it's just,
I couldn't imagine doing that, like having to deal, because I'm guessing like my it's quite strange actually, because my auntie, she's like, I'm going to not say her age actually, because I'll either A, get it wrong, or B, get it far too like old, and then I get a slap on the wrist over Christmas. But she had a hip replacement, but I'm not 100% certain. I think hers was to do with like a cyst on the bone or something, I remember her saying. And I remember like before she got the replacement done, like how much pain she was in. Like you could just fucking see it in her eyes, you know what I mean? It's like, I couldn't imagine dealing with like that level of pain every day. Like I ache, but that's because I train a lot. It's not physical pain from something I can't control. It's really disheartening to see that. And then when you see somebody who's recovered, like she had a replacement and now she's like solid, like she's pretty good. It's
upsetting to see someone in pain. Like I always noticed that with my mum. She was always upset to see me if I was in pain, because if I get in a lot of pain, I don't like to disclose it to a lot of people, because I don't like to use it as an excuse. Like I use it as an excuse if I'm joking, but if I like genuinely want to do something, I won't use it as an excuse. And she could always tell if I was in pain, because if I start crying, that's when it's serious, its peak point. Because although I may cry a lot, I never cry from my leg. It's very rare, because I I've coped with the pain for so long that you just get used to it.
Yeah, totally.
When I'm teary, it's like I can see that hurt in her eyes that she's just like, I can't do anything.
As a mother as well, I'm sure there's like that maternal, like, my child is hurting. I want to help, but I can't help sort of thing, which must be like unbearable to deal with in some ways. So I'm sure she's very happy that you're in like a good place again now.
Yeah, definitely. Like, a life goal of mine was to tie my shoelaces, because I've never been able to do it. Never ever. I can do them up. I know how to do them, but I've never been able to do it on my right leg because of the hip dysplasia. And that was the one thing that I wanted to gain from surgery, was to be able to do something like that. Yeah. Because I always feel embarrassed if I have to ask someone. I remember being in school and asking someone to do my shoelace, and everyone just looked at me, and I had to go to my teacher and be like, can you do my shoelace up? Because I cannot.
Can't physically reach it. Yeah,
and it was just like, I mean, I can't help it.
No,
it's not like, it's not that I don't know how to do them.
No, and it's not that you were putting it on in any way. Yeah. It's like,
and it was my goal by the end of the year to do them up, and I've done them. I can do it. That's so sick.
That is so sick.
My surgeon, I'll see him in January, and I know he'll be so pleased.
Yeah,
because I saw him in September, and he was chuffed at the progress I'd made.
That's so amazing.
He came in after surgery, and he looked knackered, and I was like, "Was it as bad as you thought?" And he was just like, "It was a state." Like, I don't think I'm gonna ask him if it was one of the worst tips you've seen, because I do believe it will have been.
So what did it feel like to like do up your shoelace? Like, I know that sounds so like, as saying that, it feels, you know what I mean? It feels kind of strange, but because I know your story, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it must have been like such a euphoric moment.
It was completely out of the blue. I'd been trying, like, doing all my stretches and stuff to try and get closer and like loosen up everything. And then I hadn't even attempted it for a couple months. And like, I was still training and everything and stretching, but I'd stopped attempting it because I was like, I'm nowhere near it. So I'm not going to just like, you know, because I just feel like I was at the same.
Yeah, of course.
And then like, I was just putting my shoe on and I was like, shall I see if I can do my shoelace up? And I was with a friend and she was like, you can. She was like, I can, you're pretty close already. Like, just with putting my shoe on. And I did it. And like, they were more happier than I was, because like, I put it on and I was really like anticlimactic moment. Like, I was glad to do it. Yeah. But I thought like the day I did it, I'd cry. And I was just like, oh, I can do it. That's cool. Yeah. And everyone else was chuffed to pieces. Because I've always wanted to do it. But yeah, it wasn't like winning a Grammy or anything. I was just a bit like, oh, cool.
But yeah, it must have still felt like almost this like little, not little accomplishment by any means, because I'm not trying to diminish it, but
it was something that it happened, and I was instantly just like, okay, the surgery has worked, because I'm able to do that, which I've never been able to do. And it also it sort of confirmed that my training and my physio and everything is paying off. Yeah. Because that's always been my problem with sticking to anything, is not seeing results. But I've stuck to it, and 9 months later I've done it, and I don't even think the surgeon thought I'd do it. He said I'd be able to do it one day, hopefully. So I'll just be rocking up to him like, check it out.
You should walk in with your shoelace undone. But hang on a minute, and do it up in front of him.
Look what I can do. He would be chuffed.
That must be so sick, especially from like a surgeon's perspective as well.
Yeah,
you know what
I imagine he just gets just this great feeling, the fact that he's helping people.
Yeah, totally. Like the fact that you're like literally changing people's lives. Yeah. Like,
because when I was in, there was a lot of people. Like, there was a few other people having surgery that same day, probably from him. But they were like, you know, my mum's age.
Yeah.
Older.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm there, like, brill. I think I gave him the worst job. And I was in hospital the longest. Everyone else was discharged. And like, I was just like, this is shit. But clearly my case was bad. And yeah, I think when he was actually doing the surgery, he realised how bad it was. And probably thought, this must be painful.
Yeah.
Because just looking at when I had my first x-ray done with him, I was like, okay, that is
Not
a
good.
state.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think it looked that bad. He had it on the screen and he was talking to me, and I just kept staring at it like in disbelief that that was what my hip looked like.
And that's like in your body, like there. Yeah.
Because I only have the one side.
Yeah.
Looking at the other hip that's perfectly fine, I was like, this is a very easy spot the difference.
Yeah. It's like a reference point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Being able to see it. But like, obviously you had the surgery now, which is like so sick. And as speaking from your friend, it's like so good to see, because I remember when I first met you, and all I would do was talk about running.
Yeah.
There's the running joke. Pun intended. But like, I remember when I first met you, 2 years ago? No, it must be coming up 3.
Just over 2.5.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm guessing you're like almost at the peak of like pain with your hip. And now seeing you now, like walking into the studio, half an hour ago, like watching you just waltz in like it was like no big deal. I was like, so sick to see.
Thank
you know what I mean? Like, and it gives me such like a sense of like not pride, like being proud of my friend, you know what I mean? Of being like, oh cool, she's done this cool thing, and like, and you're doing it all on like your Instagram name
Which one?
all of them. Your obviously there's Oscar award winning actress, classic Vinny, and then there's what is it? Off balance, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, where you're sort of like documenting, because you're kind of on like a new kick at the moment.
Yeah, I sort of, there's been a lot of like negativity this year, and I just want to sort of, I don't want to bullshit to anyone, but I want to like document how I'm coping with my hip and with general well-being. And you know, some days are bad, everyone has bad days, but I'm just trying to sort of show that like not everything's doom and gloom. Like, I did my shoelaces up this year, and that's been on my list to do for my whole life. And I'm like, that's a good thing, and I posted it just for the sense of me being able to compare it. And so many people messaged me saying how happy and proud they were of me. Like, my mate, who is a bloody bodybuilder, has like the best physique, and he's messaged me a few times just saying like, I'm so proud of you, Vinny. And I'm like, that means the world.
Yeah,
because I'm just like, I feel like I'm not in the same league as these people.
No, of course.
But they're proud of me, and I'm like, that's just a really warming feeling that other people feel happy for me, just for being able to do my shoelaces up.
That's so sick though, because like it sounds like it's touched so many people, you know what I mean? Like all of your friends, and it's like especially now the fact that you're on like this next journey, like this next like stage of, you know, re-evaluating what you're doing and who you are. It's like, it's such a fucking cool stage to be in. Like,
I'm excited.
Yeah, honestly, and it shows. Like, when I talk to you about it, like, I can see like the excitement that you have, and how pissed you are that the gyms keep getting closed. Feels like every other like conversation we have is like, fuck, the gym's being closed, man. Like,
luckily I have weights at home.
Yeah, I saw you've got like a little home gym going on.
Yeah, it's not anything special, but it keeps me ticking over.
Yeah.
Plus, it means I don't have to go to the gym every day. Which is nice, because some days I really don't want to drive to Weston.
Well, especially at the moment, I can imagine that would just be a bit kind of annoying more than anything. But like, yeah, no, it's so sick to see, because like I remember like even for myself, when I decided to like lose a lot of weight, I spoke about it so many times, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but like, because I did it in like a quite a unhealthy way, the way that I approached it. You know, I was sort of like deeply depressed and all of these things, and it was like I didn't approach it in a healthy manner, and my friends could see it wasn't like it was healthy that I was losing this weight. I was trying to train, get healthy, but the approach was terrible. Yeah. Whereas now the approach is like much more sustained. I still will smash 6 donuts if I want to eat 6 donuts, you know what I mean? But like, and it's so good to see like my other friends now figuring out their like health path and figuring out like how to get themselves into a place of being happy with who, like their body, you know, which is the thing that, you know, we live with this for like 70, you know, 80 years. Yeah, 100%. And like only you can change it, you know what I mean?
Like, I mean, mine is not in the best shape. Like, I don't claim to be this most amazing, you know, perfect icon for fitness and well-being or whatever, but I'm a strong advocate of the balance, finding the balance, and someone else's balance and someone else's drive is completely different to the next person's.
Totally.
So like, for example, if you want to be a bodybuilder, you've got to be fucking dedicated to that, because if you're not, it's not going to pay off. And I've seen that firsthand from one of my closest friends, and he is dedicated, and it's paid off, and he's, you know, it's really helped him. And for me, it's very much just like eating good food, not cooking. I love cooking. But still enjoying. I enjoy drink. I'm not ashamed to say that. I enjoy a piece of chocolate, but I'm not going to stop that, because that's the stuff that sort of makes it more rewarding in a way.
Yeah, and it's like keeps that balance, because you can almost go too far with it, I think. Like,
because I feel like if you restrict yourself, you're more likely to fail. Is a way I look at it.
Yeah. I think you can overdo it. Like you can put yourself in a position where you actually get burnt out with trying to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve.
I've been on really restrictive sort of diets, programs, whatever, and like they work for a time, but as soon as you stop it, all your progress is gone. Yeah. Because you're not restricting yourself nowhere near as far as that was. So just finding the balance in general life is good. And especially this year, which is why I started that page, just like trying to find a balance between all the shit that's going on and like the good stuff, because there is good stuff happening. Yeah,
totally. And it's like the positivity is like so needed, you know what I mean? Like, because the world is so like heavy at the moment, you know what I mean? Like,
it is.
It was really weird, actually. It was like about a week ago, I was walking into the studio. It was like raining, it was cold, it was like proper sort of Burnham summer Burnham winter day, you know. And it like the weight of everything just suddenly hit me out of nowhere. Like not the weight of like my personal career or life or whatever, but like just this year, the world, it just all sort of like came across me. I was like, fuck, like everything felt so heavy. It
hits you. This weekend has hit me. Well, this whole week, like last week up until yesterday, I was having the worst time. Like, just shit. To the point where it all built up. I had a cry. I spent the weekend to myself, not really talking to many people. But that is what made me feel good today, is like having what was clearly needed. Because everything got too much, all the stress. And now I'm back to sort of being like, okay, let's just take things easy. Yeah. Which is what I like to be. But it gets to everyone, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I think like it naturally builds up.
Yeah. Without realising.
Totally. And in a way, I think those that have worked hard to best understand their own mind, you know, and I mean that in the sense of like knowing when you're feeling the weight of the world, knowing when you're feeling anxious or upset or depressed, all of these things, or happy. It goes both ways. When you learn that part of your mind and when you feel like that and you can understand those emotions, I think that's when you have true sort of power over yourself, because you're able to identify it. The thing that I feel really scared for is when people individuals have all the traits of depression and anxiety, but they're unable to recognize it.
Yeah.
That scares me, because I know what that feels like, being in a position of not knowing, like, that you may have that part of your mind, or you're feeling very sad.
Yeah.
Like, I know that if I feel sad one morning, I can take the time to meditate and actually find out what the trigger for that was, or what caused me to feel upset in that moment. And having that is almost like a little bit of a superpower over my own mind, you know?
I agree. I think it's important to switch off and find out the ways that people deal with things, because everyone deals with things differently. And I found my way is to step back. I'll talk to a few people, like people that I know I can talk to, and will naturally make me forget about how I'm feeling.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't use that as an excuse. I just use it as sort of like a lifter. But aside from that, I just indulge in comforts, because things like that get you through it. And yeah, just learning, that is something that I have done this year, is learning how to cope with feeling like, you know, the world's on your shoulders and feeling all that pressure. With lockdown and having time to yourself where you not really feel like you have a lot of pressures on, because see, everyone stopped in the first lockdown, nothing was open, no one was at work, unless you were a key worker. And doing that, it pushed me in loads of ways. Like, it took me to my limit because I wasn't seeing anyone. And then I realised that me seeing a lot of people was my way of sort of ignoring things.
Yeah.
And because you can't see anyone, it sort of pushed me to push through it. And now I know my way of sort of coping with things. If I feel particularly low, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing to take out of this year again, is to just know that I know what to do if I feel low. I'm not lost. Which is nice.
And I think that's the thing, is like the lockdown kind of helped to find growth. Like,
it forced growth for a lot of people.
Yeah, for a lot of people. And that's the thing, is I think a lot of people identified that, like identified like, oh, okay, I've got this unknown period of time to myself in some manners, like, what am I going to do? Like, and for some people that went one way of finding self-growth, whether it, you know, it was physical growth, learned like training, I know so many people that started running during the first lockdown and are still running now. They've just kept to it, kept disciplined with it, which is so sick.
A lot of people started a new hobby as well, teaching themselves something new. A lot of people started baking. Language as well. I had a couple of friends that started learning languages. A lot of people started teaching themselves how to do so. I know like a couple musicians who decided to teach themselves something new. So like how to mix on Logic or something. Yeah. Like just teaching yourself a new trade when you have the free time. Yeah, that's growth, like real, like personal growth. I think is so key. And then on the flip side, you had individuals that didn't do that. And it's like, it's interesting to see that paradox. Like, it's interesting to see how people spent their free time. Like, because in the grand scheme of things, okay, yes, there's this deadly virus going around the world, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, for the large majority of this year, we've all been fairly safe in some regards, you know, and I do feel bad for those that have been affected by this virus and this pandemic massively, but the large majority of us have either been at home or off work in our comfort areas in some regards, most of us.
and being in a place of being comfortable is a weird one. Like, I have a weird affinity with it. Like, I don't like overly being comfortable. Lions are not my thing.
Yeah.
As I've discussed in the past.
Yeah.
And so, if anything, the lockdown and having surgery and this whole year has sort of taught me, my personal self-growth, how much stronger I can be if I just push myself.
Yeah.
Whether that's physically or mentally. And that's a big sort of moment for me in self-growth. And that's the thing that scares me, is the people that didn't like use that time, this time that we may never get again in our lifetime. We may never have a period where it's like, oh look, stay at home for three months or whatever. We'll pay you. We'll give you some money, but you just stay at home and do whatever you want.
When
you know what I mean?
Because I've thought back to that, like recently, and again just now, and it's just bizarre. Yeah. It's the only word I can use to describe it is bizarre, because it's like everyone was just at home.
Yeah.
Nothing like especially the UK in particular just came to a standstill.
Yeah, entirely.
It just stopped.
Yeah. And
that's just, it's like something out of a weird sci-fi movie. The fact that everything just stopped. Like, I just think about it, when you actually think about something like that, you just can't explain it. Obviously you can, because of the whole pandemic.
Yeah, you can put a title to it,
yeah,
but you can't necessarily like put it in a context that would ever really be understood.
Yeah, it's just bizarre.
Yeah, if you told yourself, you know,
like a
year or 2 years ago, that in March 2020 the motorway you could stand in the middle of the M5 for an hour and you wouldn't see a car, like you'd be like, what? Like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like,
if you'd said that, like, in March 2020, no one will be at work.
Yeah.
For 3 months. Nothing will happen. Like, no events will go ahead. Like, everything like that. You should be like, what?
It's
like,
crazy.
What's going to happen?
It honestly sounds like a movie plot, doesn't it?
It does.
You know,
it's bizarre.
You know, I don't know if you saw the trailer for this. You know, YouTube ads. They're getting ridiculous now, like how long YouTube ads. Oh, and you can't skip half of them, and it's like, God damn it. But anyway, this one YouTube ad came up, and it was like, oh my God, this is jokes. There's a film coming out, I think at the beginning of next year, or sometime next year, called COVID-29, and it's basically a film. This filmmakers have made a film about COVID, like the lockdown, all those things. But all they've done is they've taken what was stay at home, like, which, let's be honest, was very mild, like the whole lockdown original one, and they've basically just dialed it up to like 1,000.
Yeah.
And I saw the trailer for this, and I was like, well, Hollywood hasn't slowed down.
True.
I'll have to remind me to show you the trailer after this podcast, because it is hilarious. Like, that somebody's gone, COVID-19, what if we add a 2 instead of a 1 and make a pandemic movie? And that's what they've done.
Yep.
Like, and it's crazy to think that, you know, that they've greenlit it and it's actually a film now. But I think the only thing that really sort of scared me out of the whole, like, this whole pandemic is just how this whole thing has just annihilated the creative industry.
Yeah.
Like,
it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, especially for the music scene. Like, you know,
I feel like the music scene is getting no support, because they're not.
No, and that's the thing, is like, I personally, obviously, I don't know a whole lot about the music world. I only know my friends who are musicians and music that I listen to, but I don't know how venues are put together and etc. But even with my little experience in that world, I can still see that it's like, yeah, these people need a lot of help. But the whole art creative community need a lot of help.
Absolutely.
Apart from theatre. Theatre has all the money by the looks of things. But anyways.
Yeah, and I've seen, because London is entering tier 3 tomorrow.
Today or tomorrow, is it?
Wednesday.
I think it's midnight tonight, isn't it, that it goes into tier 3?
So Wednesday.
Well, this goes up in 2 weeks anyways. London, are you on fire yet?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot of people, because they brought back sort of pantos for the Christmas period, and then a lot of people in theatre and like theatre venues and stuff have sort of said like, oh, this is like the straw to break the donkey's back or something. And I'm like, look, you got to come back. You got to open your doors.
Yeah.
Even if I don't know if they actually started pantos yet, but you still got a green light to do it.
Yeah. And also you got, and this obviously, I know we're partnered with the Princess Theatre, but they know that I'm going to speak my mind. They got given a lot of money, a lot of theatres, not necessarily the Princess Theatre, but the theatre industry. You know, I remember when the Tory government announced however many millions it was they were given to theatres to bail theatres out. And then immediately all of like the protests from the music industry started. And I was like, guys, you're giving the money to the wrong people here. Like, you need to split that.
Yeah, the theatres need help because, you know, theatres are important, like, especially in the West End.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
I get it. But it's just, I just feel like everyone in the music industry, obviously like big venues, Manchester Arena, all like the arenas and stadiums, they're fine.
Yeah,
because they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But people that run independent venues, they're just fucked. They just get, they have, all they've done this year has been fucked over.
Yeah, totally.
And no one even has a date of when live music can return. I think I've seen like a few gigs announced for like socially distanced in like January. And I'm like, that's mad.
Yeah.
And I think one was a social distance gig and one was the same band playing the same venue in like May, and it was a normal gig. And it's like the social distance one is something ridiculous, like 700 people. Maybe not even that, like for this massive venue.
Yeah.
Because obviously everyone has to probably be seated.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is like running, obviously, like the Brickworks, we're classed as a studio space, so we're not actually a venue as such. Well, we are, because we run exhibitions, so I've had to read through like the legislation. I advise not to. It is the most boring thing you ever do. But to my understanding, which isn't huge, venues are allowed to open at a half capacity. So you're allowed to have half of the capacity that you can normally have, as long as it can be socially distanced, or up to 2,000, I think. So in theory, music venues could reopen. I don't know if there's a clause in there for music events.
There could be a curfew. I've not read through it, so I don't know.
No, but it really, it's really disheartening to see that, something that is so vital to us as a nation, music and music venues and, performance of music,
absolutely,
is being so fucking shafted.
Like, the UK music scene is phenomenal.
It's one of the best in the world,
I genuinely think it is the best in the world. I don't think any other country... I know a lot of big artists come from America, but I don't think any country has, like, the array of artists that have come out of the UK to the level that they have blown up. Like, main example, the Beatles. Fucking huge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they played Liverpool, the Cavern, which is a tiny little independent bar. If all the independent venues get shut, we're not going to get any new music. No. Like, nothing. Everything will be down to what gets played on the radio, which is shit, because the radio already have enough control over the
it's
music
curated.
Scene. Yeah.
It's completely curated. Like,
so nothing new will ever come out.
No. And it will be a case of those artists that do get a break on radio will be for specific reasons. Yeah. They fit a bill. Yeah. They get X amount of streams on a platform that the radio station's wanting to boost. It's like the art world and the visual art world, the music, you know, they're all arts, and they're all under the same, you know, banner as such, but they are all treated so differently.
They are.
And it's, you know, speaking from a perspective of never being a musician, I can't sing for shit. I'll break the microphones if I did. But being passionate about music, enjoying music, especially independent music, it is really interesting to look at how curated and controlled the music industry actually is. Because from an outsider looking in, you wouldn't necessarily think that. But then when you actually start to look into it and speak to artists and musicians.
I remember there being sharing something, and someone commented saying, "Oh, I don't know a lot about music," but it was something about what. Let me start again. I shared something that said, like, whenever there's a crisis in the world, the music industry is always there to support it.
Yeah.
Like Live Aid, you know, charity singles, charity gigs, raising money. And when the music industry needs help because of the pandemic, everyone just sort of turns away.
They sort of turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah. And it was just like, maybe people need to help the music industry. And someone commented saying, I don't know a lot about this, but given like the net worth of people in the music industry, like Paul McCartney, Kanye, can't they just bail themselves out? I was just like, that's not the point.
No.
Like, and also net worth is not what they have in their bank account, available money.
No.
But it's like, we all like music. Simple as that. Everyone likes a certain type of music. And it's just like, if you're not going to support the music industry, then you're not going to find anyone new. No. If the music industry just stopped now, that's it. You're stuck with the artists that are out. Yeah.
And that's the scary thing. It's like, you know, the music industry, although it is this vast, colossal entity, the independent music scene isn't.
No.
The independent scene where these next up and coming artists that will get radio play and hit singles, they're not getting any exposure because there's nowhere for them to get exposure. Yeah, the internet's great, Spotify's fantastic, but only if you've already got an audience.
Yeah,
well, if you've got
and you
no
need
audience.
an audience from gigging.
Totally.
And, you know, big musicians do help out little places that have helped them. Alex Turner from Arctic Monkeys auctioned off a guitar to raise money to help a venue in Sheffield that helped them grow their audience and that they'd played gigs at when they were starting out. Like, places will get support from musicians, but it's not enough. They need actual support.
Yeah.
Because, you know, rents for buildings, that they'll buy booze and then that all went out of stock.
Yeah.
And then when they next open, they'll need to restock everything.
Yeah. And I think it whittles down even further than that. Like, yeah, of course the venues and the independent venues are incredibly important, but it's the people behind them as well. Yeah. Like, these venues can't get run and the music can't get played if A, you don't have the staff, B, you don't have the musicians to actually be there and play the music. These people aren't getting any support. You know, I hold my hands up and say that I'm on universal credit right now. I have been since the beginning of lockdown because I ain't getting nothing right now from my personal artwork, what I do for a living. And it's like, yeah, there's support there, of course, for a very finite amount of people, but the general consensus, especially in the creative world, us creators, especially the ones that are starting quite low on the food chain, there is no help. And the thing that really fucks me off is when I have this conversation with somebody who's not an artist, whether that's musician, visual, whatever, they just say, I'll go get a job. Yeah. It's like, but you're completely defeating what this conversation is. You're defeating that it's not just that simple. I've put 10 years into this, over 10 years now. And yeah, okay, you could argue that a job would pay me much better than what I'm doing right now. But if I was to be working a full-time job, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. So you see the difference. It's like that conversation can never actually reach a goal. It can never reach a single point. I'm going somewhere with this, don't worry. My point being is the people that are in charge right now, the people that control the gates of funding with regards to actually being able to really help, are the people that look at smaller creatives like you and I and just say, we'll get a job.
Yep. And, you know, I hate to make it political, and I won't go deep into it, but that's what you get from a Conservative government.
Yeah, totally.
A complete hatred of anything creative. And I have been around people and overhearing conversations that have not involved me, but I will sit there and be like, what the fuck are you on about?
Yeah.
Because I've heard people talk about a Labour government and say that Labour just want us all working for the government and not doing anything else, when in reality that's all a Conservative government are doing to us.
Yeah.
Because why do you think they're cutting all the arts?
Yeah. Well, arts has been, being cut since the day the Conservative government walked in, 5 years ago, whatever it was, 10 years ago. Like, it's always been progressively cut down and down and down. And I think now they have been somewhat given the golden goose to be able to just completely cut all the funding to these independent venues and artists. And, the only people in the art world, in the creative world, that are doing well right now are the people that work in the higher brow area of art. Do you know why? Because that's the area that a lot of these governments will invest money, because there's money in it.
I remember being at uni and seeing a statistic for funding either from the government or might have been lottery funding for like creatives, and something ridiculous like 85% of the money, which was millions, went to opera. What?
Yeah.
How many operas have you been to, Jacob?
I can tell you, Vinny, 0.
Same.
No way.
And how many gigs have you been to?
Oh, at least 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So why does the fucking opera get all the funding?
I know, it's mad, isn't it? But then, guess who goes to those operas?
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Guess who goes to these highbrow art venues and
it's
events?
like opera and ballet are like the two highest funded forms of artistry, I think. It's something ridiculous like that.
Yeah. And if that doesn't show the true colours of what...
And contemporary music is bottom of the list.
Yeah.
When that is what brings probably the most revenue for the UK.
Yeah.
In terms of music.
Yeah. I read something actually. It was an article actually, I think came out on BBC potentially, and people are going to be like, oh, BBC, they're biased. Yeah, okay, they might be a little bit, but tell me a fucking journalist, a news publication that isn't biased in some way. The only one I can think of is Vice, that isn't entirely biased towards one side. Anyways, just had to get that off my chest because I get fed up I get so fucking fed up with people saying that news is biased. Of course it is. Somebody fucking owns it.
It's propaganda.
Okay, it's going to be biased, but there is ethical codes. Like I'm a fucking I've been a journalist, I'm a freelance photojournalist in some capacity. I know the ethical code. Do you know what I mean? Ooh, rant. But like I read in this article that, okay, here we go. Let's go down the rabbit hole. Brexit. They're fighting over the fishing industry right now, like fisheries. The fishing industry only brings in £0.9 billion a year, so £900 million a year. The UK music industry brings in £5.4 billion a year in revenue to the government. But there's nobody fucking arguing for that, is there? No. Like, it just boggles my mind how, like, and this, to people listening or watching, this isn't like a bash conservative podcast by any means. We all need a government and we all can disagree and we can all, like, put together points of why we like and dislike certain things. So I want you guys to know that. But there is so many things about the handling of this pandemic and the handling of the Brexit negotiations when it comes to the creative world that really frustrate me with regards to especially this government.
Yeah, and like we can't base it off Labour would do better because we don't know. We've not been in that position for a while now.
Yeah, of course.
So we can only base it on what the current government have done in terms of funding creatives, and the answer is not a lot. And that's why a lot of us are fed up with it.
Yeah.
Because there is no support.
I would be amazed if you didn't see a lot of creatives move out of this country by the end of next year. The people that I've spoken to, they're really toying with moving out of this country to a country that better supports the creative world. You know, Australia, New Zealand, these countries that you could argue ran much better than this country, but also a much more understanding of how important the creative industry is to their economy.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I can see why people are doing that. And there's part of me that's like, maybe when the Brickworks is over in October, world might be a bit more normal again by then. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think people who are up in the food chain in the government are understanding how their lack of support is actually driving their next wave of talent, which would then next bring in the money into the system, are now looking at just leaving, just getting away from this place. Because like there isn't a whole lot left, you know what I mean? Especially for creatives like ourselves that are at, as I said, like we're not bottom of the ladder, but we're still quite low on that rung in some regards. It's like I'm looking at the landscape and thinking, in a year's time, what's actually going to be left? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, in 3 years of living in Manchester, outside of a pandemic, so many venues closed down and they all got turned into flats.
Yeah, of course they did.
Like student flats or housing or just normal flats, and it's just like, what's going to be left?
Yeah, we're literally going to have offices and flats. Like,
and that's not a city.
No, a city's energy. Yeah, a city's energy is a vibe, it's culture.
Especially from a big city, so many musicians have come out of London, come out of Manchester, come out of Liverpool. But Manchester's had a fucking ton of artists come out of it.
Honestly, Manchester's a mad one for music, isn't it?
It's high up on the list. That's why I chose to study there. And if all those venues close down, then that legacy's pretty much gone. Yeah. It's just a tale now if all those venues close. Because it's like, bands like Oasis, The Smiths, Stone Roses, Cortinas, they all played little venues that like people I know are playing.
Yeah.
And then they work their way up.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
If they're gone,
what's left?
Exactly.
Really, for like the next generation to build off, that's kind of, it's really daunting when you think about it. Like
it's scary.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, it kind of puts you in a position as a creative, like wondering what the fuck to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's all well and good if you're in a good place in your career and you're getting commissions or whatever it might be, or hit records, but if you're still building right now, which we both are in some respect, you know what I mean, that weight starts to like build up a little bit.
It
but
does.
Like, I try and be as positive as I can these days, because otherwise the world feels kind of shit. And so I try and keep telling myself, like, it's all good, okay, it's shit right now, and it might be shit for a little bit, but it will equal out.
Yeah, I'm the same.
We'll get to a point that where, we will be able to start going back to, gigs, start running major exhibitions again. Like, it will happen. When? Don't know, but we just got to hold on. And I think that kind of circles back to this idea of that consistency, that like, that sort of, not discipline, but that passion to sort of keep sort of chipping away, keep driving away at things,
Yeah, I agree.
It's a bit of a strange one, but
it is.
It's a deep undertone. You've been making new music, Vinny. You played me a track a few weeks ago, and I literally lost my shit because it's so different to what you normally make.
It is. I used to write a lot of, well, I still do, but it used to be very just depressy. And now it's not.
That's an interesting word, depressy.
Depressy.
Is that actually a word?
I don't think so.
Shall we make it a word?
Yeah.
Depressy.
I use it a lot.
Fuck it, I'll submit it to the Oxford Dictionary.
Let's get Susie Dent on the case.
But no, when you played this track for me, when you're like, oh, I've made something different, I was like, oh, Vinny, it's gonna make me. How different are we talking? Are we talking lots of tears or little tears? Like, and then you started playing it, and this like, I'm not gonna give it away because I don't know when you're releasing any new music or anything. But when you started playing it, I was like, oh. But that's quite a switch. Like,
yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? Like, because I was listening to your music before you came by the studio today. Because whenever I have a musician on the podcast, I try and listen to their music, whether it's right before the podcast or whatever, to just try and feel like I'm in it, like I get a better insight for it. And when I was listening to it, I was like, this is so different to the stuff that you played me recently, you know what I mean? But
it is.
Like, what's the switch?
Just, new beginnings, I guess. This year's been full of them. And I wanted to sort of challenge my songwriting, because I know that I can write a sad song. I know that. That's what I used to gig around with, that's what's on SoundCloud. And I just thought, I want to challenge myself in the same way that people were challenging themselves by running or by baking. And I was like, I want to create like a song on my laptop that isn't just me and a guitar. Yeah. And that's what I did. And I'm really happy with how it came out. And now that's just sort of my vibe at the moment. It's like, synth experimental stuff at the moment.
That's so sick though, because it must have been such a different creative process.
Yeah, it was.
Like going from the stuff that you've made in the past, which as you said, is like just guitar and yourself using your vocal range to create like the whole sort of like vibe for the track. And then this one's like,
I mean, there's not even a guitar in the new song. No.
God, you really have switched up a little bit, eh?
And that made me uncomfortable because I feel safe with a guitar. If I have a guitar, I can sit there, I can jam on it, I can sit there for hours with it because I know how to play it and it's safe. And I took that away and I was sat with this synth and I was like, I don't know how to use this. And it was scary. But I think that's what helped it, was that I was just there messing about, having a play, seeing what I could write. Yeah. And my friend gave me a word. Yeah. And I based the whole song around that one word that he gave me.
I kind of want to say the word.
No, not yet.
No? Okay.
I'm not sure when to release it yet. It'll probably be February time.
Just do it now, when this podcast comes out.
It better come out in February time.
Comes out the week before January. Does that work?
No.
Damn it. No, that's so cool because like I think switching up your creative process is so important. Yeah. Like you can get stuck in that systemic like creation because like as I said to you before we came on, like it's really easy to get stuck in a flow of like when you start seeing success in your work. Yeah. Like as a creative, like I've had this conversation before. I think I had it on one of the podcasts previously. When you start to see some form of success, like speaking from a photography standpoint, I know I can make images that work in the context of being quite isolated, quite lonely. Like that's kind of my style. But then when I challenge that is when I start to see like that personal growth, you know, and it's like really interesting to see that in other people, especially like yourself that had such a strong way of making music, like to then be like completely the other direction, you know?
Yeah, I think it's important to challenge yourself and go out of your comfort zone. Because I was comfortable. I couldn't write songs until about 2017. That's when I started writing songs. And then I sort of just stuck with writing songs like that for 3 years. And then I thought, okay, I'm at a point now where I know I can write a good song. Like my songwriting ability had improved so much that I was like, I can write a catchy song. Like I know how to write a song. I feel confident with the songs I write. So it was just sort of like, instead of just writing the same stuff, I know it's not the same, but you know what I mean.
No, I totally get what you mean.
Like go out and do something different and learn how to do that and how to make that sort of style.
Like the challenge is where the fun comes from it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like with a friend of mine, so this is very much photography related again, but a friend of mine who's a great photographer, he sort of, a few years ago, I was stuck in like that mic's doing, like the Mexican wave. What did you do, Vin?
Nothing.
You can move it. You don't have to like stand there and sit there and yeah, really great photographer. And he said that one of the things that he did as a challenge to himself as an artist was every time he went out to shoot, he would take one lens. Just one lens, one camera. Because he was the sort of guy that would take like 4 or 5 lenses, like make sure he's shooting all of these things. And to make it even more difficult, he uses like a prime lens. So I don't know if you know what a prime lens is, but it's like one that doesn't zoom. So it's like a set length. So like he said to me, do that. He was like, just take a prime lens. Don't take anything else. Just take a prime lens. And around that time, I was going away to Barcelona. And if I, at the time I would have taken like a camera, multiple lenses, flat, like literally being kitted to the teeth just in case. And I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do what this, my friend says. I'm going to try it. So I took the camera and one lens. And it was such a challenge that I loved it. Yeah. And I've stuck by that ever since. And so like, I literally will only go out with my camera with one lens, maybe 2, depending on the shoot I'm doing. Because the challenge is what brings out the creativity.
Yeah, I agree. I think being outside of your comfort zone to a level where you know you're capable of doing it, but you're not comfortable with it, that's where genius comes.
You caught me just sipping water there. I was about to respond. I was like, no, I totally agree. I think like the challenge is what creates the challenge is what creates the dilemma, and the dilemma is what you're trying to fix. Yeah. Like just find the solution, whether that's in photography or music, whatever. And I think we have to be challenging ourselves as humans, not even just creatives.
I think when I was, making my new music in this new style, I found it challenging for a little bit, and then I just found it rewarding and also inspiring, because I almost inspired myself with it, because I thought, by the end of it, I thought, this is good. Like, I can do this. Like, I got to the point where it's finished and I think it sounds good. And I'm like, okay, let's continue down this new route. Yeah. And see where that takes me. Because I've done the, one style. Yeah. I've done that for 3 years. Yeah, so I'm like, let's try something new.
Let's go down this new avenue that I don't know yet. And I sort of like rebranded,
and that's where it's at now. It's just waiting for the right time to release, and then just see where it goes from there.
Totally. So speaking of that, where can people find your work? Where can they find your music? Are you still on SoundCloud?
I'm still on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
It's under Last Orders Music UK. That is also the Instagram handle. Cool. And then I'm on Twitter and YouTube and stuff, which is just Last Orders.
Cool. And then also bloody well forgot it again. Your Health Kick Instagram.
Off Balance Vin.
Thank you. Why do I keep thinking wobbly Vin?
I am quite wobbly.
Honestly, I feel that. There's areas of, No, well, that's a little over an hour, so, unless there's any more shouting at the Tory government that you feel.
There's so much.
I feel like there is so much more we could get off our chest with regards to shouting at good old Bojo.
Thanks, Boris. Love you, boy.
But no, I appreciate you coming on, Vin.
No, thank you for having me.
No, of course.
I hope I didn't bore you too much.
Honestly, when you've got your new music like out, because is it like an EP vibe?
Just a single for now.
Just a single.
And maybe another single later on in the year.
Cool. I tell you what, we'll get you back on when your new single comes out, because I'd love to have another chat and see how the creative process might have changed again. Yeah. Yeah, it would be so sick. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on and having a chat me. And shooting the shit on how the world's burning down right now.
You've got to put the world to rights. Makes everyone feel better.
Totally. But yeah, guys, if you're watching and or listening to this, make sure you go down to either the link below and check out Vinny's music, and also her Health Kick page. Is Health Kick the right term? Oh my God. Somebody's back upstairs with the world's loudest hit. This happened on the last podcast. Just as we were wrapping up, man.
Yeah. Health kick, well-being,
positive vibes, energy. That's very 2020. Make sure you go down to the description, check out the links below, give Vinny a follow, also give us a follow as well. That'd be much appreciated. And remember, stay safe.